Time is a lie, not a misunderstanding, not an approximation. A lie, one that has been quietly buried under decades of equations, conferences, and polite academic silence. Because the truth on the other side of it is something most physicists do not want to say out loud. You have been told your whole life that time flows, that the past is gone, that the future is unwritten, that the present is the thin glowing edge between the two, always moving forward. That story is what your teachers used. It is what every documentary you have ever watched used. It is comfortable, it is intuitive, and according to the deepest equations we have ever written about the universe, it is wrong. So why has nobody told you? This is the story of a single equation that should have been front-page news, a physicist who gave up his career rather than pretend it wasn't true, and a letter Albert Einstein wrote a month before his death that has been quoted in physics departments for 70 years and kept away from the public the entire time. Start with the strangest fact in modern physics. For a century, the great unfinished project of the field has been to combine the two theories that actually work. Einstein's general relativity, which describes gravity, space, and time on the largest scales, and quantum mechanics, which describes everything small. They are both spectacularly accurate, and they do not fit together. Every attempt to force them into a single framework produces contradictions and infinities. But in 1967, two physicists, John Wheeler and Wheeler-DeWitt, managed to write down an equation that tried. It is called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, and it is meant to describe the quantum wave function of the entire universe. Not a particle, not a galaxy, everything. The cleanest, deepest version of reality we have ever attempted to put on paper. And when they finally wrote it down, they noticed something they could not explain away. The equation has no time in it. No clock, no flow, no before, and no after. The variable for time, the thing that should be ticking through every line of mathematics that describes our reality, simply is not there. Write it out in full, and it says that the operator describing the total energy of the universe, acting on the wave function of the universe, equals 0. Nothing changes. Nothing evolves. The whole cosmos, described in one line, sits perfectly, eternally still. Read that again, slowly. The equation that is supposed to describe everything that exists has no time in it. Physicists have a name for this. They call it the problem of time, and they have been quietly trying to fix it for more than 50 years. Now here is what should stop you cold. The official response to discovering that our deepest equation has no time in it was not to announce it. It was not to hold a press conference and say, "We have found something staggering about the nature of reality." The official response was to treat it as an embarrassment, a technical bug, a puzzle to be patched. So they invented workarounds. You can add a fake clock by hand using a hypothetical field and pretend that its changing value counts as time. You can argue that time emerges as a fuzzy approximation when you zoom out far enough from the quantum level. You can introduce what is called a reference fluid, an imaginary substance whose only job is to carry a clock through the math, so the equation looks like it has time in it, when it does not. 3 different costumes, dressed onto an equation to hide the fact that underneath it is naked and timeless. That is not science being honest with itself. That is science covering for a result it does not want to admit. But not everyone played along. There is a man named Julian Barber who has spent his entire life refusing to. He earned his doctorate in physics in 1968, working on the foundations of Einstein's theory of gravity. And then he did something almost nobody in modern academia does. He walked away. He never took a university position. He supported his family from a cottage in the English countryside by translating Russian scientific papers into English. And in his spare time, free from department politics and the pressure to publish safe, fundable ideas, he kept working on the questions everyone else found too uncomfortable to touch. In 1999, he published a book called The End of Time. Its central argument is simple enough that a child could grasp it, and devastating enough that most of his colleagues still refuse to engage with it directly. Time, Barber says, does not exist. There is no flow. There is no river. There is no ticking. What we call time is nothing more than our experience of change. And change, he argues, can happen without any underlying time dimension at all. Imagine the universe as an infinite collection of frozen snapshots, a still photograph of every possible arrangement of every atom, every star, every grain of dust, every neuron in your brain. Each snapshot is complete, self-contained, absolutely motionless. Barber calls this collection Platonia. Your life is not a movie playing across these snapshots. Your life is a path through them, a trail connecting one still image to the next. And the snapshots are not being created as you go. They were never created at all. They simply are. All of them. Forever. If he is right, then the version of you hearing these words right now is not arriving at this moment. You have always been here, fixed in this exact configuration, the way a chess piece sits frozen on a particular square in a recorded game. The version of you that woke up this morning still exists. The version of you that will one day die already exists. None of them are happening. None of them ever happened. They simply are. Each one a still frame in an endless gallery, and your sense of moving between them is the only motion in the entire picture. Barber anticipated the obvious objection. If every snapshot is just a frozen instant with no past behind it, why does this moment feel so drenched in history? You have memories. Your body carries scars. The rocks around you hold fossils. Surely all of that proves time really flowed to produce them. Not necessarily, Barber says. He points out that certain special snapshots are what he calls time capsules, frozen configurations that contain within themselves structures that look exactly like records of a past. A snapshot of your brain right now contains memories. A snapshot of a canyon contains layers that appear to have been laid down over eons, but the appearance of history is built into the still frame itself. The snapshot does not need an actual past to have happened in order to contain the evidence of one. Most of the arrangements in Platonia are chaotic and meaningless, but the ones that are richly structured, the ones that look like they came from somewhere, are exactly the ones capable of holding a conscious observer who feels that they did. You find yourself in a moment that seems to have a history because those are the only kinds of moments anyone can find themselves in at all. Now you might be tempted to file Barber away as a fringe eccentric, the kind of thinker a serious person would not take seriously. So consider what Albert Einstein wrote on March 15th, 1955. His closest lifelong friend, Michel Besso, had just died. Einstein himself had only weeks left to live. And in a letter of condolence to Besso's grieving family, he wrote, and these are very nearly his exact words, that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Sit with the setting of that sentence. He was not making a joke. He was not being poetic to comfort a mourning family. He was telling them, as gently as he could, something he believed was literally true about the structure of reality. Besso was not gone. He had simply moved to a different location in space and time. The place where Besso existed was still there. Besso was still in it. He always would be. Einstein died 1 month later. And that sentence, scribbled in a private letter, has been passed around physics departments for 70 years, while the public was allowed to go on believing in the flowing river of time. To understand why Einstein wrote that, you have to understand what his own theory did to time. Picture the universe not as a flowing river of moments, but as a single, solid, four-dimensional object. 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, all welded together into one unchanging structure. Physicists call it the block universe. And in it, the past, the present, and the future are not stages that come and go. They are just different locations in the block, the way New York and Tokyo are different locations in space. You do not say Tokyo stops existing the moment you fly home from it. You just say you are no longer there. The block universe says exactly the same thing about your 10th birthday. You are not there anymore, but it is still there. It always will be. And this is not some fringe reinterpretation. This is the standard mainstream understanding of Einstein's relativity, taught in graduate programs all over the world. It falls directly out of the mathematics. Relativity showed that 2 people moving differently will disagree about which events happen at the same time. Your now and my now can genuinely differ depending on how we are moving. But if my present moment includes events that you consider to be in your future, then those future events must already be real, sitting out there in the block, as concrete as the chair you are sitting in. There is no universal, ticking now that the whole universe shares. There is only the block and different observers slicing it at different angles. There is a famous way to feel how strange this is. Physicists call it the Andromeda paradox. Imagine 2 people passing each other on a sidewalk, walking in opposite directions. Andromeda is a galaxy 2.5 million light-years away. According to relativity, because those 2 people are moving differently, at walking speed, a fraction of a mile per hour, their definitions of what is happening right now in the Andromeda galaxy differ by days. For the person walking one way, a fleet might, at this instant, be launching from an Andromeda world. For the person walking the other way, that same launch has not yet been decided. 2 human beings, strolling past each other on an ordinary street, disagree about whether an event across the universe has already happened or lies in the future. They cannot both be slicing a still, waiting cosmos. The only way both of their nows can be equally valid is if the future event is already sitting there in the block, real and complete, waiting for each of them to reach it along their own path. Change your walking speed, and you change which slice of the frozen universe you call the present. But the whole loaf is already baked, and almost nobody talks about what that actually means. If the block universe is real, your future is already written. Not in a vague, astrological sense. Literally, the molecule of air that will enter your lungs at 3:47 this afternoon is already sitting in its final position out there in the block. The conversation you will have on Thursday already exists, in full, every word of it. The way you will die, the year, the cause, the people in the room, the light in the window, is sitting somewhere in that 4-dimensional structure right now, exactly as fixed and finished as the room around you. And free will, in this picture, is not merely doubtful, it is meaningless. The choice you think you are agonizing over between two options is just your consciousness sliding along a track that was already laid down. You are not deciding, you are discovering. You are watching a film that was shot long ago, and your feeling of making choices is a property of the projector, not of the movie. This is why physicists go quiet at the dinner table when someone asks them what they actually believe about time. But if the future is fixed and time does not flow, then why does it feel so overwhelmingly like it does? Why do you remember the past and not the future? Why does the present feel like it is rushing forward? The answer physicists give is unsettling in its own right. The direction you feel, the arrow of time, does not come from time itself. It comes from entropy, from the fact that the universe began, for reasons still not fully understood, in an extraordinarily ordered low-entropy state and has been growing more disordered ever since. Eggs break and do not unbreak. Heat spreads and does not gather back. That one-way slide from order to disorder is the only thing that distinguishes past from future, and it is a statistical tendency, not a fundamental law. Down at the level of the basic equations, the ones that govern particles and forces, the math runs the same forwards and backwards. It does not know which way time goes, because at that level, there is no which way. And this is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, because that low-entropy beginning is itself unexplained. Physicists have a name for it, the past hypothesis, but a name is not an answer. Nobody knows why the universe started in such an exquisitely ordered state, a state so improbable that everything we call the passage of time is really just the universe relaxing away from it. The entire felt direction of your life, birth to death, young to old, memory to anticipation, hangs on a single mysterious condition at the very beginning of everything. Remove that one strange initial ordering, and there is no arrow at all. There is no reason the future should look any different from the past. There is just the block, symmetric and silent. Your sense of flow, then, is something your brain manufactures. You hold a memory of the previous moment and a prediction of the next, and the contrast between them feels like motion, but the motion is happening entirely inside a single frozen frame, the one that contains this version of you, holding these memories right now. Every other frame is equally frozen and equally convinced that it is the real present. There is no spotlight sweeping along the timeline, illuminating one moment as now and leaving the rest in darkness. Every moment is lit. Every moment is the present, from the inside. Yours only feels uniquely real because you are the one inside it. Now, plenty of serious physicists hate this conclusion and have fought it. Lee Smolin has built much of his career on the opposite claim. That time is the most real thing in the universe, more real than the laws of physics themselves. Sean Carroll has argued that a timeless picture simply does not match the way we obviously experience the world. But notice what neither of them has done. Neither has produced an equation describing the whole universe that contains a clean, flowing time variable. They have produced arguments. They have produced philosophy. They have produced very good reasons why we would like time to be real. But the math, the actual mathematics at the deepest level, keeps coming back the same way every single time anyone writes it down. Static, frozen, timeless. 100 years of the greatest minds in physics, and the equations keep insisting on an answer the equation's authors do not want to hear. And this is not one lonely equation misbehaving. The same silence about time echoes through the whole architecture of fundamental physics. In relativity, time is just another coordinate, one axis among four, with no built-in arrow and no special present. In the deepest quantum descriptions of the universe, the flow drops out entirely. The only place in all of physics where time genuinely, irreducibly flows is in our experience of it, in the felt sense of one moment giving way to the next. Everywhere we look, with mathematics, rather than with intuition, that flow evaporates. It is almost as if the flowing time we are so certain of lives only in the mind of the observer, and nowhere in the fabric of the world itself, which raises a possibility more disorienting than any single equation, that the most basic, obvious feature of your entire existence, that things happen, that time passes, may be a property of you, and not of the universe you are passing through. And there is a question hiding inside all of this that almost nobody wants to ask out loud. If the block exists, and every moment in it is equally real and equally frozen, then what is doing the experiencing? What is the part of you that feels like it is moving through the frames, lighting them up one at a time, calling one of them now? Press a physicist on this, and the confident tone usually falters. They will mumble something about consciousness being a sequence of brain states, each one correlated with a position in the block. They will say the feeling of flow is a trick the brain plays with memory and anticipation. And if you keep pressing, why does it feel like anything at all to be one of those frozen frames? And why this one? Most of them will admit, if they are honest, that nobody has a good answer yet. That should make you nervous, because it is arguably the most important question a human being can ask. What am I? And why am I here, in this moment, and not some other? Think about how sharp that question becomes in a timeless universe. If every frame of your life already exists, complete and frozen, then there is a frozen frame of you as a newborn, a frozen frame of you as a teenager, a frozen frame of you on your deathbed. And every one of them contains a version of you that feels from the inside that it is happening now. So why do you find yourself here? Why is your awareness attached to this particular frame at this particular age, reading these particular words rather than any of the countless others that are equally real? There is no rule in any equation that says the now of your consciousness should be here rather than there. And yet, here you are. If all the frames are equal, your presence in this one is either a coincidence so large it defies meaning, or a clue that we are still missing something enormous about what consciousness actually is and how it relates to the physics. Some thinkers try to dissolve the problem by saying there is no single you moving through the frames at all, that each frozen moment simply contains its own complete observer, its own little island of awareness, with no thread connecting them. The you of a moment ago and the you of right now would then be two different beings entirely, related only by shared memories baked into each frame. If that is true, then the continuous self you have believed in your entire life, the single traveler journeying from birth toward death, never existed. There was only ever a scatter of separate momentary minds, each one certain it was the whole story. Nobody knows which of these answers is right, and the people best equipped to work on it are the ones most reluctant to talk about it. Then there is one final thread, and it is the strangest of all. In some of the most respected interpretations of quantum mechanics, every possible outcome of every quantum event actually happens, each in its own branch of reality. Now combine that with Barber's Platonia, where every possible configuration of the universe already exists, frozen, forever. Put those two ideas together, and you arrive at a picture almost too much to hold in your head. Every version of you that could ever exist is sitting in the structure right now. The version that took the other job. The version that said yes instead of no. The version that never got sick. The version that died as a child. The version that lives to 110. All of them. Equally real, equally frozen, equally there. We usually think of a conspiracy as a few people in a locked room hiding a single document. The conspiracy of time is not like that. It is bigger and quieter and stranger. It is 100 years of physicists writing down equations that keep pointing at the same answer and choosing again and again to look away from it, to call it a problem instead of a discovery, to insist something must be broken in the math, when the math has been telling them the truth the whole time. You are not flowing through your life. You are not moving forward. There is no forward. There is only this configuration, and another, and another. And somewhere in that endless gallery of frozen instants, the moment of your birth and the moment of your death sit side by side, equally real, equally permanent, neither one closer to now than the other. Einstein meant that as comfort. You will never truly lose the people you love, because every moment you ever spent with them is still there, in the block, untouched and unchangeable. Nothing that ever happened is erased. Nothing beautiful is ever really gone. But sit with it long enough, alone, in the dark, and it stops feeling like comfort. It starts feeling like something else, like discovering that the room you have been pacing your whole life is actually a photograph, that the door you keep walking toward is painted on the wall, that the choices you have agonized over were settled before you were born by the geometry of a four-dimensional shape you cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot escape. The theory about time that physicists refuse to believe is not really about time. It is about you, about whether anything you do matters in the way you think it matters, about whether the word now means anything at all once you look at the universe from the outside, about whether the people who understand the deepest equations of reality have known for a century that the story we tell ourselves about our lives is wrong, and quietly decided we are better off not being told. Maybe they are right to keep it quiet. Maybe a species that fully absorbed the block universe would stop functioning. Maybe the illusion of flow is the only thing keeping any of us upright, and the comfortable lie is a gift. Or maybe the lie has gone on long enough. Whatever you choose to believe, remember this. The next time someone tells you that time is real, that the past is gone, and the future is open and anything is still possible, ask them a simple question. Ask them where the time variable is in the equation that describes our universe. Then watch their face. Watch them search for words. That pause, that small flicker of discomfort, is the closest you will ever get to hearing the truth admitted out loud. Subscribe to the Cosmic Deep for more of the stories nobody tells you, from the surface of hell to the edge of the universe.